20th, 2023 edition of the September 20th, 2023 edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm, East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, welcome, you picked a good one. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars, Facebook, and Instagram Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. If you want more, visit nuljobsnetwork.com. To our employment partner today, American Airlines, we thank you for supporting the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. But also, I just want to tap in and say today's guest for the DCSS, no relevant experience, no problem, features Landy Spearman, CEO of Organized Shift. Again, it is sponsored by American Airlines, where diversity adds value, the global leader in commercial aviation, carrying the banner around the world for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Landy, we ready? Are you here?
Let's do it. I'm here. I'm so ready.
You know I'm excited to have you here. Do me a favor, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So the great part about this conversation is actually I am live from Chicago. Yes, I live in H-Town where you and I met, Kenneth, during the National Urban League Conference. But I am currently in my home. And I say that because our conversation is so relevant today. It starts from the foundation of 8 different businesses here growing up before I was 20 years old. That's what my parents owned. So when we think about changing careers and being able to adapt and, corporate and entrepreneurship, I have vast experience in that. I'm going to talk a little bit about data science, that thing that we hear, that's in our phones and technology, right? So I'm going to talk about how you can transfer some of the skills that you may have and where I got those foundations from, Lean Six Sigma, the ability to change and change management, all of those things. And it started right here in my hometown of Chicago. University of Michigan, proud graduate. Hablo español también. Entonces, we can do this in English and Spanish, but I am ready for you and for this conversation today, Ken.
I just want you to do it. Look, as you had mentioned, met you in Houston at the National Urban League Conference. Look, Landy, we have a great audience on the Digital Career Success Series, and I'm sure some of them were in Houston and had the opportunity to see you as well. So if you were in Houston, if you saw Landy, or if you just attended the National Urban League Conference, please drop that in the chat. Let us know where you're from, and let us know if you were in attendance. Landy, when I met you, I knew that this conversation had to happen. We had a great time in Houston. Me,
yes.
you, Tiffany Dale Hunter, Jenny Vasquez. We took the stage. We did what we do. But now, spotlight is on you. I'm gonna let you go. So let's jump in.
Let's get started. Well, the conversation today is about helping you to shift your success. So that thing about experience, no relevant experience, right? We talk about being relevant. Here's the thing. Today, no problem. I am coming to you to help you to know that you're in the right place to make that shift, literally. So let's get started. Jory? So first, just drop this in the chat. You don't even have to take out your phones. Drop in the chat. Describe yourself without using your title. You heard that, without using your title. Describe yourself in just 3 words. I promise there's a reason why I'm doing this, Kenneth. I want to make sure that people take the time to pull back just a little bit. It might be your lunch break. You might be in the middle of 50 million things, but I want you to pull back and really get present, and do that by describing yourself without using your title in just 3 words. So I am seeing change maker, love, and powerhouse, committed, enthusiastic, funny, relationship builder, innovator, passionate. What I love about all of this is this describes who you are, the person. You, energetic, people person, loving, you, the person. So keep that in mind as we continue to move through this presentation today. Next. Keep them coming, don't stop. Next slide. So think about this. What do people know you for? In other words, who do you be? So it's oftentimes something that we can say, hey, I am motivated, I'm passionate, I'm committed. But I want you to reframe that and think about, what do people know you for outside of yourself, right? Because we show up one way, right, with what we have in mind, and then the way that we be comes out. That's the other part that we're seeing. So that's a part of this conversation. Because I want you to, again, get present on, what experience do I need to be able to kind of take that and shift and move somewhere else. Okay, next slide. So to shift or not to shift. So here's what we're going to do today. You're going to get some tips, tools, and techniques, tips to help you to recognize your own preferences and interests, your behaviors or patterns, some of the barriers to any kind of change that you might face. We're also going to give you some techniques to help you to enhance your transferable skills. So those things that you want to take from here and move them over here, I'm going to give you that. And then I'm going to give you some receipts, as we like to say, a case study talking about the data-driven decision-making, why, to help you to sustain your shift. Next. So here's a quote that I love saying to kind of give us context. Meet people where they are to take them where they need to be. Meet people where they are to take them where they need to be. So as an executive coach, one of the things that I'm doing sometimes is saying, hey, not what I have in mind for you or the potential that I see. What is it that you have in mind that I can help you to where you need to be? So think about that, meeting people where they are, taking them to where they need to be. It's a little bit different from the way we normally think about this, Kenneth. Next. Pause to say that this is a safe space. This is a time to making sure that, yes, we're discussing some things that are relevant to us. They can be personal, right? They can be personal and make us feel a little bit vulnerable, right? But even in the chat, even as we are having this conversation, I want to make sure that we are respectful for each other's opinions, each other's thoughts, right? As we're sharing our perspective, our opinions, that this is a safe space to do that. All right, let's jump in. So think about this question here. I've had you think about a couple things to kind of reflect. What does it cost you to not show up as your whole self? What does it cost you to not show up as your whole self? When I'm working with teams, sometimes, I'll have people say, hey, I'm an introvert, or I'm an extrovert, or I'm not the first person to answer. Or I am the first person to answer. Or, some of the things that were in the chat, I'm funny, I am personable, I'm loving. If that's a part of who you be, my question to you is, what does it cost you not to show up as your whole self? Think about that. What is it costing you not to show up as your whole self? We're going to delve a little bit deeper, I promise. But this is a question that often helps us to think like, wait a minute, if I'm funny, but at work, I'm not funny because I have to be serious, or I'm an accountant, but people don't see me, for the number side because I work over here in the music space, right? What does it cost you not to show up as your whole self? Next slide.
Hey, Landy, can that conversation drift into imposter syndrome and things of that nature? Is that kind of where that sits?
Funny you should ask. Kenneth. Next slide, please. That's exactly what we're talking about today. It's the reality that the experience of yourself, how you see yourself, can affect everything. How you see yourself can affect how you show up at work, how you are at home, how you lead, how you engage with each other, how you innovate and create and generate new ideas. You seek opportunities. If you see yourself, Kenneth, you are reading my slides, if you see yourself as being here, but you're not really ready for that, or you're not worthy, or whatever those words are, how you experience yourself can affect everything. That's the whole point. I want to make sure that we're really clear that it costs you something not to show up as your whole self. And I often hear people say, well, Landy, I can't. I'm at work, I'm in a professional environment, I can't show up as this or that. And I'm reminding you that by suppressing some of those things, it can affect everything. Next slide. So when I use the term shift, there's a science behind it, all right? We're going to start with the assessment, okay? Kind of seeing where you are. And those are some of the questions that we went through today, helping you to assess where you are. Then we become aware. We become aware of, maybe there are some things I do want to work on. Maybe there are some things that I want to realign myself with. Then we take action. So often, Kenneth, I find that, I came up with this idea, I know I'm right, and then I take action. But it's about first assessing, thinking it through, pulling back. I use this slingshot example. I'm in Chicago, so y'all got to remember, I wasn't pulling my slingshot at rocks a lot. I got to admit that, okay? But think about the slingshot, how you pull back, you slow down to speed up. That's what I mean by the assessment. Then we become aware. What are some of my gaps, my blind spots, my barriers? Then I get aligned to do what I want to do, which is take the action. So that's the experience model. When we're working with an organization, we're working with an individual, we're working with a team. It's helping you to shift your experience. Next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna break down this whole thing by giving you a lot of information, but I'm hoping to give you it in bite-sized pieces. And I should say, this is a safe space. So if you have questions, put it in the chat. I promise you, we'll get to the chat and you'll have an opportunity. If we don't get to everything by the end of this, you'll have an opportunity to connect with me, and I am here for you to answer your questions. So I am in a bakery. By the way, I'm in the Teapot Brew Bakery. So if you're in Chicago, please come see my sister, my family back here. We're at the Family Bakery in Chicago. I live in H-Town, but I'm here and we're talking pie, okay? We're talking pie. But I'm not talking about the pie back here that's delicious, your favorite cherry pie or apple pie, or it's pumpkin season, so a pumpkin pie. I'm talking about the pie of performance, image, and exposure. So when you're thinking about shifting your experience, if you're thinking about any type of growth, I want to grow. Remember, it costs me something, all right? It takes something. But the key to this pie is to understand that where you are performing your job as expected, performing in your business as expected. Where if this is, hey, here's what we're going to offer, here are our services, here's my job description, whatever that is, performance only represents 10% of your growth. Most folks, when I'm meeting with, they're like, hey, I've been doing a good job. I got, all these great ratings on my performance review. I'm doing great. Well, that is what is expected. To grow, we have to go beyond performance, beyond my status quo. So I'm just speaking about pie in terms of growth. So we're going to go through each of these, performance, image, and exposure. I really want to make that point that so often doing a great job at what we're expected to do in terms of growth only represents the 10%. Next slide. We've already talked about this form of awareness, right? So I said assessment, kind of getting present and clear, but then becoming aware. How do you become aware? Awareness involves our blind spots, our opportunities for growth, making sure that we understand our preferences. For me, for example, if I'm learning something new or I'm trying to grow, I prefer to learn as listening. I'm an auditory learner, all right? So I'm aware if I'm trying to grow that yes, I can hear what you're saying, but if I'm just watching a video, that might not be the best way for me to learn, okay? So understanding how you like to communicate and be communicated to, how you like feedback, if you want the performance review just in writing, right? These are all tips to be aware of. Again, I'm trying to grow. So by being aware, this enables you to express your needs and what? Your boundaries. Because sometimes we don't have those boundaries, right? I tell people I don't accept everybody's advice, Kenneth. Okay? Thank you, but no thank you. All right? But awareness also allows you to listen, empathize, and change habits. Once you see, hey, this is the opportunity, then I can get aligned with doing something different.
Hey, Landy, while we're at a pause real quick, if you don't mind, can you touch base on blind spots? I'm looking at your slide. You're speaking about understanding your own blind spots. Can you just elaborate on that for our audience, please? It's the Urban League Digital Career Success Series with Landy Spearman.
Absolutely. So when we think about blind spots, and again, I'm speaking specifically today to growth, but we're all coming in for digital career success. So success is not just where I am, it's growth. Well, sometimes we have blind spots. We have places that we're unaware of. Why? Couple reasons. One is we're good at what we're good at. We might be aware of that. But the places where we have opportunities or where there's a weakness or an area for growth, we don't always want to hear that. How many adults do you know are like, yeah, sign me up to hear the no or sign me up to hear the feedback, right? There's an opportunity for growth, but it might be something that you can't see. So a part of self-awareness is making sure that you have some trusted advisors, some mentors, some a boss. It can be a boss or somebody outside of your what I call your circle of 5 10 that gives it to you straight. People in your board of directors, your 5 board of directors, who will tell you, hey, yeah, that's a blind spot for you. Or, hey, you went from this industry to this industry. Here's how we do things over here. That doesn't mean that you have to do everything that they say, but you want to have those, you want to be aware that those are opportunities for you to grow. There's a book, I know this is not the name, I got to get the name. I think it's called Thanks for the Feedback. But I always say feedback is a gift. It's a gift. That tough love might be something that you really, really need, but it might be in your blind spot. And I'm doing this because I'm thinking about all the horns since I've been in Houston, in Chicago, all the horns I heard blowing. Because just like driving, when you're trying to get over to the right, if you don't look back in your blind spot, you get that beep beep. So that's what that blind spot is. Taking some time, yes, to reflect and to implement, but not just from your perspective, from the perspectives that you can't see. Next slide. Okay, so I said tips, tools, and techniques. So here's the tool. Think about how do you align with your manager on your performance? Because remember that the performance is how much in terms of growth? Put it in the chat. How much is performance represent in terms of growth? 10%. Okay, we're in the right place. We're in the right place. So when you think about aligning with your manager, and again, managers have a job, bosses have a job, right? Just like we have a job, they have a job. They're expecting us to continue to grow and continue to perform and to do better than we did last time and improve the cost, improve the quality and improve our costs, right? Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks, Michelle, for dropping that in there. So when we're thinking about aligning with our managers on performance, remember that is our opportunity for growth. If our performance is, hey, this is what we're expected to do, a tool to use is your performance review. Where is that space that says I can grow? Where is my feedback? Additionally, who do you ask for support? Sometimes, especially with all that is offered in technology, we're using our phones, we're jumping on podcasts, we're listening to videos, right? The thing that I say about that is that's one-way communication. You can hear everything that you want to hear, right? You can click and you can hear it. But I want you to brush up against someone. I want you to brush up against someone who's going to give you some support and some feedback. So who do you ask? All right. And then where do you go to grow or get feedback? Again, we have all of these resources at our fingertips, podcasts, videos, everything, tools in your, what do you call those things? Learning management systems. You have all kinds of places where you can go to grow. I want you to think through, okay, if I'm using this tool consistently, where else can I go to grow? I remember back in the day, I used to have encyclopedias. Y'all remember that? Encyclopedias in Britannica? I used to have encyclopedias. And so I made it a habit to test myself to always be learning, always be learning. So in addition to going to get that resource, always have someone who can help you to sharpen. Iron sharpens iron, right? Have someone that you can brush that new knowledge up against. Next. I got more, Kenneth, I promise. So we went from the performance to the image. Now I showed you the image. How much does the image represent? Drop that in the chat for me. How much does the image represent? Next slide. In terms of our growth. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm still in the right place, Kenneth. And look at this. Did you know that a recent survey showed that 62% of employees feel imposter syndrome? 6 out of 10 people walking on the street every day feel imposter syndrome. Now, this is one of the things I have to admit. I used to be like, girl, I don't feel that. I'm confident. I got it. All
I
right.
believe that. I believe
Okay.
that.
Can you believe it with these red glasses, right? But the reality is, there are always, especially again in the context of growth, there are always places where it's like, oh, maybe not. Maybe I go backwards, or maybe I go back and I'm comfortable, or maybe I do what I've always done, or maybe I don't take that step and step outside of my comfort zone. 6 out of 10 people today feel imposter syndrome. Why am I telling you this? You are not alone. Okay. And I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. Again, my red glasses, my lips on for you to bring you some joy, right? Why? Because there is a way for us to shift. Once we are aware, then we get to choose to do something different. Next slide. Willing to show 2 slides back. Cynthia, put in there what you need. I promise I got more to come that's going to tie it in. It's a whole journey, Cynthia. Tell us what you need. So, why might we have these blind spots? Okay, Kenneth, this is answering that question. Because we all share barriers. So I want you to drop in the chat, find where you are. Are you the perfectionist, someone who has anxiety over how things are done? Drop that in the chat if you're one, the perfectionist, okay? Or are you the soloist, someone who feels pressured to handle everything on their own? Drop that in the chat if you're number 3. Or are you the natural genius? You stress over not succeeding on what? The first try. I gotta get this right. Okay, I gotta get this right. Or are you the superhuman? You put on your cape, feeling guilty if you don't please everyone. As a recovering people pleaser, right? I think I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 sometimes. And are you the expert, number 2, of having fear that you lack knowledge? These are some of the hidden barriers, the blind spots in us that we share when we're trying to grow. And what did I say? You are not what? Alone. I love that I'm seeing some commonalities, and then I'm not. We're all over the place.
Hey,
We're
Lynn,
1, 2, yes.
is this part of the feedback cycle? Like, are people defining themselves based on their own perception or on the feedback they're receiving? How's that come across?
So generally, people have an idea. They're generally aware of, you know what, I know how I show up. I feel like, I'm the person who is guilty um of trying to please everyone, but I might not be aware that I'm a people pleaser. That's that feedback. So when you say as a part of the feedback cycle, this is why it's so important not just to just be in our own bubble when we're trying to grow. You have to, growth takes growing. Think about a seed. If a seed started as that seed in a, wrinkled up shell, right? In order for it to grow, it has to come out of the shell. It has to get some fertilizer on it and some dirt and some, right? So it has to brush up against some things. So it's one thing to be aware, but what did I say? We got to go from assessment to awareness to getting aligned. And a part of that alignment is understanding those blind spots, getting feedback, and now we have the opportunities to move forward. We have the opportunities to work on it. That's what this is about, Kenneth. The I is about image. Image is not just what I wear, I look fly. That's not what image is. Image is how others see you. That's a part of growth, factoring that into the equation. Next slide. One, yep. The question is, one back one, please. How do you see yourself to overcome imposter syndrome? How do you see yourself to overcome imposter syndrome? That's a question. Okay, I'm waiting for y'all to drop this in the chat. And Cynthia, I'll get you, okay? How do you see yourself to overcome imposter syndrome. And let me let you know the reason why I say get outside of yourself, that seed, get outside, break open the seed. The reason why I'm saying that is because if you look in the mirror at yourself, did you know that your reflection is backwards? Think about that. If you're looking at yourself in the mirror, what we see is a different view, a different perspective than what you see. If you look in the mirror, your reflection is backwards. So people are saying, you know, I become comfortable with myself. I stress less. I'm looking at my past accomplishments. Good. These are all things. You all are with me. These are all tips, tools, and techniques that we're doing and using together. I remind myself that imposter syndrome is not real. I wouldn't be here if I were not qualified. I love this. Thank you for keeping it real. Next slide. Letting go of my fears to move through, confidence in myself. Okay, I got some more for you, all right? So I did a tip and I did a tool. Now we're going to do a technique. I want you to identify and reframe your gaps. Some of it is just saying, oh, yeah, that's that, right? Yeah, that, you know, I know I was good at that, but I'm not good at these things, right? So reframing your gaps as opportunities. You do this with someone you trust, whether that's a mentor, whether that's a colleague that you trust, whether that's somebody completely outside of either of those circles. But what you do is you turn the negative self-talk into constructive feedback, into positive attributes. I told you, Kenneth, we would not be just talking today. I'm going to give you some things that you can bite down on, okay? Reframing is so critical and so important. To close the skill gaps and shift is turning our failures into lessons learned. The way you do that starts here. The way you turn your failures into lessons learned starts here. Who is afraid of failure? I'm just curious. Who's afraid of failure? And how do you see failure?
So I want to speak about this. So you're talking about kind of identify and reframe gaps, right? Mentor, yes. Trusted colleague. When you're hearing that self-talk, do you have any tips or techniques that someone can use immediately within themselves to kind of get them to kind of turn that switch off and start thinking positive again?
You know what? I bet you they do in the chat.
I
bet you some folks. Come on, drop it in the chat. When it comes up for you, because it will come up. When it comes up for you, I am very often, as I'm sure you might be, I'm very often the only in the room. Very often. Okay. And so when I look around, I'm like, okay, I'm the only in the room. Wow. Thank you, God, for putting me here. I'm going to say what I say first, because I have to become aware that at first, maybe I approached it as something to be almost fearful of, like, oh, why am I the only woman? Why am I the only African-American person? Why am I the youngest in the room? Right? Those are the questions that we may have, right? But put in the chat, what do you do to reframe that? Because I know some of you are doing it, asking questions or relying on colleagues. I look at my failure areas to recognize something I cannot accomplish, maybe just not right now. Oh, that's a good one. If they hired me, clearly they didn't think I was an imposter, so I belong. For me, Kenneth, I start off with I belong. All right, I belong. I believe. I think that was something I was reading with Coach Prime. You know, I believe. I believe. I believe. I start there. I start reframing with I believe. The mindset is the most critical part of the shift. It's the mindset and the skill set. Just we've learned that. We see that, especially with the Great Resignation. We see that it's not just me having the technical skills. You have to know how to talk, right? You got to know how to talk to me. We got to have the interpersonal skills too, right? So all of that starts with the mindset as well as the skill set. It's making sure that we are aware of those too. Another real quick one, another tip, and I'm going to get to this as well, is I think somebody put this, having a brag book. One of your assignments is creating a brag book. I say don't wait until the end of the year performance review when somebody is presenting to you, hey, this is what you were supposed to do and this is what you did. Start capturing those things. Journal. Don't journal just your thoughts. Journal what you did, what you accomplished. Journal some of those opportunities. There are quick things that we can do to help us to reframe how we see ourselves. Like, wow, I'm amazing. I'm awesome. Why? Because I can see and here are my own receipts. Now, are there opportunities for growth? Always. But that's why we're here. Next slide. Here's a reality. Change is not a switch. As much as we would love it to be, change is not a switch. It takes something. As a matter of fact, next slide, it takes time, effort, and energy to recognize where we are in our change experience. Now, as a change leadership expert, I'm always going to be talking about the Kubler-Ross change curve. I'm always going to be helping us to recognize that no matter what type of change it is, this curve may be similar for some of you who know the stages of grief. This curve is the reminder that, hey, at any point, as you can see at the top, I might move back and forth. I could go from stage 1 to stage 3, and then I could be coming back through, or I might have multiple changes going on at the same time. But what I want to give you, what I want to remind you of, is to recognize that it's something that's going on and give yourself the grace. When you're working, go ahead, Kenneth, please.
Sandy, what did you say this is called again?
The Kubler-Ross change curve. And it's very, go ahead, Kenneth, I'm sorry.
I want to let everyone know, I know people are requesting the slides. I want to let everybody know that this, as well as all of the Digital Career Success Series episodes, are available on the Urban League Jobs Network YouTube channel. So people can go there after the show, probably about a week after the show, and find this. But this is amazing. And if you
I told you I was showing up, Kenneth. This is the stuff I give my corporations when I'm meeting with these executives. Yes.
I need you to dive into this a little. Tell me about this.
Okay. So when we're thinking about change, first of all, let's do this. Do me a favor. At the bottom, the keys to engagement, there are 5 of them. You see them at the bottom in the different colors. Drop whatever resonates with you. Just drop it in the chat for me. Don't overthink it. You got 10 seconds. Type whichever of those resonate with you, drop that in there. Okay? Good. Yes. All right, good. Okay, so that's coming. Don't overthink it. If you haven't dropped it, drop it now. Thank you. All right. The reason why I had you identify your key to engagement is because, Kenneth, every one of us has something that resonates with us when we're facing a change. Now, you heard me use the term grief in the same conversation, and I'm talking about growth. Okay, so grief and growth. In that same space, it's a type of change. One may be a loss, but growth takes growing. Remember what I told you, we meet people where they are to take them where they need to be. Guess what? That includes you. Okay. So if what you need when you're experiencing a change is what you dropped in the chat for me, if you need clarity, if you're like, before I can do something different, hold on, I got to be clear. It's too many moving parts. We have disruption, right? We have this thing called COVID, and now I'm working from home, and now I'm working back at the office, right? But I need clarity. Give me my clear instructions. You have to recognize that's what you need. Somebody else dropped in motivation. Maybe you might be reading your affirmations or doing things that are positive, listening to things that would help to encourage you, music, things like that. You might need motivation when it's all type of change going on. Someone else might need empathy. This is how I'm feeling. Not sympathy. We said empathy. Okay? You might need to put yourself in the shoes, right? Empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So you need somebody to relate to. You even, okay? Or maybe you need to know you can do it. That's the capability. I have the capacity to do it, or the knowledge. Maybe some of us hunker down and we pull out those Encyclopedia Britannica, or we start studying or researching, right? That's a sign to let you know that you're experiencing a type of change, all right? So I had you drop that in there so that you can be aware of what you need. Now, remember I said that you can go back and forth through this change curve. Y'all didn't know we were going to do some science today, but we have to. It's behavioral science. It's a part of how we behave, which starts with our mindset. So part of this is recognizing, okay, if I am in denial, and you might not recognize denial, because that's the blind spot. Okay. So the way that I can recognize denial is, wow, I can't move beyond this. I'm stuck with keep saying, hold on, you all, let me get clear. Or I'm using words like clarity, or I need to be clear, right? You might keep circling back to get clarity. That may help you to know that you're in the stage of denial or shock. All right. The next part of that curve is acceptance. The thing about it is acceptance is oftentimes we think of acceptance as good, positive. I accepted the change. But the reality is acceptance can come with anger and frustration. Like, dang, okay, let me accept the fact that this is where I am. Giving yourself grace. That's why empathy is that key to engagement. Now, motivation, you see motivation is tied into low energy, low mood, depressed. To be aware that, guess what? It's a part of my mental capacity is that I may be depressed. So guess what I need? Motivation. That's not the state of depression. It's a part of this curve. Okay. So the next one is experimenting. Maybe we say, okay, I'm trying to, let me see if I can do this. Let me experiment with this. That's the capability that you know, okay, am I talking about I need to figure it out, or I gotta get another certification. That's when you know that you're in the experimental stage. At some point, people put their toe in the water. They're experimenting with the new situation, right? And then the last one is the knowledge, right? You might say, hey, I need to know that I can do this before I can move forward. You might be stuck in that stage, the knowledge stage. How do you know? What are the blind spots? What are the signs? After accepting the reality and engaging with this new situation, most people go with it. They feel comfortable. They have the knowledge. And remember, you can go back and forth between any of these stages at any point of time. But I needed you to know where you are today and that you might be going back and forth and what you need to move to the next step. Next slide. We talked about this a little bit. We talked about noticing your patterns, noticing your behaviors, notice maybe what is coming up for you, your emotions. What are you resisting? What you resist persists. Have you all heard that before? Noticing that you might have a bias. Why? Because if you have a pulse, you have a bias. If you have a brain, you have a bias. So noticing your own biases may stop you from moving forward. That's what shift is all about. Next slide.
Hey, did you just say what you resist persists?
Absolutely.
Love it. I love it.
Absolutely. Okay, so I've given you some science and some theory. I wanted to make sure you knew that when I'm talking about shift, everybody's using the term now, but this was something that we worked on a long time ago, okay? There's back into this. So I wanted you to know where you are, and now you have the tools to move forward with this, right? Now you have the knowledge. So when you're thinking about image, which represented our 30%, right, in image and our growth, right? The 4 C's to help you shift your inner image. You said, Landy, what can I go do tomorrow? That's what you said, Kenneth, right? So you can choose one of these 4 C's. Do I need comfort? Do I need control? Do I need competence? Or do I need confidence? When you're trying to determine where I am, you got your curve, you got that, but how do you shift your image? Do you need comfort? Do you need to feel comfortable that you can do this? Do you need control to know, okay, this is what I'm in control of and I can work on that? And this is what I need to work on? Do I need competence or do I need confidence? Those are the 4 C's to shift.
Hey, Landy, I love this 4 C's, especially if it's positioned in an interview setting or prep for an interview, because I think people need to be comfortable. They need to understand that they're in control as well, right? You're not just a sounding board for questions. You're controlling the narrative as well. Then you have to offer your competence, right? You have to show that you're capable of doing the actual job. And then you have to be confident in your abilities, right? To get that across naturally and to ask for what it is that you want. So I love this in that setting as well. And especially as it relates to transferable skills, because I believe that if you can control these 4 C's, then naturally you'll speak to how you can add value and use transferable skills in that setting. So this is amazing.
All right, so I'm going to keep going, and thank you, Kenneth, for that. So it's kind of like riding a bicycle, right? Think about riding a bicycle. When was the last time you rode a bike? All right. When you ride a bicycle, once you learn how to ride a bike, you generally hang on to that, right? We don't just lose our ability to ride a bike, okay? But the reality is, look at this picture, this visual. It's very intentional. We got some training wheels, right? So it might take us a little bit of something to become more confident, right? But we don't have to all have everything all today at one time. I love what you just said, Kenneth. We're not just a sounding board for them asking questions, right? I also control my narrative, right? My failures, the things that didn't work out the way that I planned, I control the narrative for what I learned from it. The confidence that I now have because that happened and that didn't work as it should have. So these training wheels are just reminding you that these 4 C's, what are the 4 C's? Confidence, competence, comfort, and what? Let me know. Drop it in the chat. Control. That is a part of our growth. Those are things that you can use. Oh, okay, wait, what do I need? I need some confidence. Oh, okay, I need some competence. I can do this. I have done this. So let me bring that to the conversation. This is like riding a bike. As we grow, once we know where we are, wait a minute, I need empathy. I got that. Okay, now let me move forward. How do I do that? What do I need? What are my 4 C's to shift? Next slide.
Hey, Landy, I'm gonna ask you to take control and kind of move us through here pretty fast, so we can jump into Q&A. I know some people are mentioning in the chat that they have questions, so I want to definitely get there. So let's go.
We're on the last one. We're on exposure. Next slide. Exposure represents what percent? The biggest portion, 60% of your growth. Now, some of these things we've already spoken about. When you're thinking about exposure in terms of growth, here are some places or people or tools that you can use to improve or increase your exposure. Your individual development plan, having a vision board, it's not just your performance review, it's going beyond that. What is my plan to grow? This is a part of the E, the exposure. This is that stretch, like the rubber band, the stretch, okay? Advisors, mentors, sponsors. Do you all know the difference between a mentor and a sponsor? Make sure you know the difference and have both.
That's always a good conversation for this space. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I do. You told me to go fast, Kenneth.
I know, but come on, you dropping gems. We're going to get there, but let's leave this thing.
So a mentor. Well, let me ask you, Kenneth. What would you say if I give the definition for a mentor? You give the definition for a sponsor. What's a sponsor?
Sure. So a sponsor, I think the easiest definition is it's that person that's speaking about you in the rooms that you're not in, right? They're kind of a voice and advocating for you in rooms that you're not necessarily in. So we all need that as we kind of walk through our professional journey.
And then what's a mentor then?
Now I'm giving that to you. Come on, we were splitting this.
So if the sponsor is the person who is aware, why? Because you've gotten exposure to them. They know your story. They know some of the things that you're really good at. They know where you're trying to grow. If that's the sponsor, the mentor can help get in there with you, right? They're the person who can give you that feedback. They're the person who you can have sometimes personal conversations with to help you to grow professionally. I say personal development for professional growth. Think of your mentor as a personal development for the professional growth. The sponsor knows the outside things, the things that we need to make sure that the world, right, the rooms that you are not in. Part of that, remember I told you that circle of 5. Do you have a mentor or a sponsor on your circle of 5? If everybody is at the same level, they're your girlfriends and your guys you grew up with, that's not, no judgment. But if we're trying to grow, we got to expand our exposure. Think about that circle of 5, getting 360 feedback. Some of the people that you work with, some of the people that maybe work for you or alongside you, some of the people who have known you for a while, and some of the people who are just meeting you. Getting that exposure, that's how we shrink. Expanding your LinkedIn network. I think I dropped my LinkedIn in the chat. I tell people I wake up and make money on LinkedIn. Not from the ads or Sales Navigator. It's because I expose when I'm asleep. People are able to go check out my LinkedIn online when I'm offline. So expand your LinkedIn network. Don't be afraid to share and update who you are and where you are when you're on LinkedIn. That's a part of your brand exposure. And then the last tip here is cross-functional projects, partnerships, working with other industries, associations. Look, Ken and I didn't know each other, and now we do. Why? Because we showed up, stepping outside of your comfort zone. All of these are tools for exposure. Okay, Ken, a couple more slides, I promise. It's the case study. We ready to shift? So I mentioned exposure and your own brand. When you look at either one of these folks, what do you see? Other than celebrities, what do you see? What I hope you see is a brand. Words that we can articulate just from seeing the pictures. When you think about going back to the very first slide, when I asked you, who do you be? What are 3 words that describe you without using your title? I'm sure you can use that 3 words for any one of these people, and their title is not on there, right? So how do you show up? What is your brand? How does the world see you? Because that's what you're putting out there. That's how you're growing. You want to have this for yourself, and guess what? You control the narrative. I see confidence. I love that self-assurance. I want to make sure that that's what people see in you. I'm showing this so that you can also see yourself. Next slide. I've said that. What is your personal brand? That's my challenge to you, to think through your brand. Think through when people see your face or hear your name, what do they see? What are the words that come to mind? What is that brand? Next slide. So here's my case study. I did not start off as a data scientist. As a matter of fact, I didn't have a tech background at all. The closest to that was I dated some engineers at University of Michigan College. Like, that's it. That was the closest to tech. All right. But my husband, yes, that's the closest. All right. But I use that to say that the thing about me that I had to recognize was I understood problems down to what detail. I can help you think through people problems in a way like other people couldn't see. I can see the systemic issue, right? When I think about data-driven decision-making, what does it require? Taking a lot of data, cleaning it up, starting with good data so that you can organize and end with good data. Those are things that I'm used to doing, no matter what type of data. Maybe not a lot of numbers and, jumping into my algorithms and Jupyter and all of that stuff, right? But I can look at data. That was something that I was good at. Creating visualizations. Think about this. Our entire conversation today, I've been telling you through stories, right? I've used the slingshot example to help you to see sometimes you got to pull back to speed up. Creating visualization, showing patterns, showing trends, creating predictions. I work with executives and managers and folks on strategy, thinking through, right? So these are already things that I was good at. Guess what? We can transfer those skills to the modern framework of data-driven decision-making. So it didn't start as, here are all the skills that I had that said I was qualified to be a data scientist. It was the skills that I did have that I had to transfer and then go get the certifications, do the work to be able to apply those skills to data. Why? Because you better believe when we're talking about communicating when we're looking at all this data and we're communicating what is the story, and I'm the only one in the room, you want to be able to show up to tell the story behind the data that includes your perspective. So when you think about your skills, get them down. We talked about the brand book. We talked about feedback and a 360 review, all of these different ways that you can choose. You don't have to do all of them, but you can choose how do you transfer that skill to your next slide. And today, here are some of the things that I worked through, right? I looked at, hey, I had 20 years of experience in executive coaching and developing leaders, Franklin Covey, doing diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've been advising folks. So I looked at all of these things. Then I looked at, wait a minute, you got some awards over here by some major entities, innovation, you work with leaders and amongst women. Then we pull those things together across industry. So I started off with this. It's kind of like my brag book, right? And next slide, I was able to take that and apply it and put it into a banner. So you'll notice that now I've worked with different brands as a result of understanding who I was and transferring those skills. Work with some major brands, some entrepreneurs who are absolutely amazing, some brands that we even know. And then you see some of the things I have highlighted. Now we can break down the title, right? So often we lean into our title, right? But understanding who I be someone who can break down information, who can have a conversation in a few minutes. Okay, I've helped you to analyze, strategize, and see some of the blind spots that maybe you can't see in yourself. Now I turn that around and put that into a title. And we're starting off with our skills and getting very clear and confident in the skills that you have.
Someone asked in the Q&A what your path was to becoming a data scientist. I think that speaks to it right there, those last two slides. So appreciate you.
And that's absolutely. So that's it. This is a visual story of the data, right? What was the path? Speaking on stages, being in the room. When I say the only, if you look at that bottom left corner, I am probably the oldest person in the room. Why? Because I was working with from high school students all the way up to my boomers and executives, right? Working to help to bring technology and innovation to Houston. I've been a part of that, writing, authoring books, working with women's networks, working in spaces where we're doing global technology transformation, how to be a part of that, how to help to include the people part into tech and innovation. I can bring that to the conversation. My question is, what skills do you have? What do you bring to the conversation? What path are we drawing for you? I've given you some tips. I've given you some tools. Here are some other techniques. You can probably take a screenshot of this. Ways to keep your skills sharper, to start to see patterns in yourself, playing, brain games or brain teasers, listening to podcasts of opposing views even, so that you can kind of pull out, wait, no, this is how I define myself. Here are my habits. Utilizing the certifications and stretch assignments is one thing, but I challenge you to practice those in the real world. Take your skills and goals, take it to the community. Do things that engage others, that remember that friction that I said that I wanted you to have. Bring that to the table. Embrace challenges, test them, apply, create that brag book, looking for testimonials, and rewrite your bio. My question to you is, what will you do differently to shift your own success? Kenneth, that's what I have. I am grateful.
Listen, stop. Amazing. I'm a big fan of yours. We've had this discussion. I'm a humongous fan of yours. I think the gift is in the gift back. Came to you. You said you had me on this transferable skills conversation. I think you provided exceptional information for all our attendees. I know there's a question in the Q&A sitting here, and it's a really long question. So I'm not going to read that out to you. If you want to kind of glance over it and answer, that's great. But I also want to speak to you about, how do people sometimes struggle with identifying their own transferable skills? Is there a process or an assessment or a tool that you suggest people use to support and assist with that?
My favorite is LinkedIn. My favorite to help you to see your own tools or your own skill sets is LinkedIn. Why? Because LinkedIn can be used as a search engine. So, when we had Google, initially only, we had Google. I say Google is a search engine, right? You can go type in something, you're gonna get all these results. Well, use LinkedIn kind of as that search engine, right? It's not just for looking for jobs. Look at it for people who have the titles maybe that you want to be, and see what they've listed as their skill. See what they listed as their experiences. Look at it as a search engine, just like Google is a search engine and Chat GPT is an answer engine, right? Start to type into Chat GPT is here. So you use it, leverage it, ask the question, what skills do I need to be such and such? Or Chat GPT, use the following skills that I have and help me to write a bio for and put the title of the new position. Use and leverage the tools that we have to create not just the search, but the answers, and then walk in the experience of your shift. Walk in the experience. I did not start off as a data scientist. I didn't start off as an organizational change manager. When I went to Michigan, they weren't even calling it that, right? But I knew I had a lot of experience with leadership, a lot of experience with change, right? And that reality allowed me to now walk in that experience. So that is what you see on my resume.
Okay, Landy, we're going to find our way out real quick. What's the name of your book and where can people find it?
Oh gosh. So the book, I actually pulled it down, but I will give you the free guide to the tools of influence. And now please connect with me. We'll pull it. We're going to put the book back up. We're relaunching a whole bunch of tools to help you to shift. So please connect with me that way.
Last question. What skills would someone need to be a data scientist? Real quick.
Analytical ability to see patterns, ability to visualize data, make sort and sense of it, and to be able to tell the story. There's a need for coding. There's a need for analyzing data and wrangling it, but there's also a need to take the data and use it for good. Take the data and use it to see the gaps for improvement. And that is another way that you can use your skills for good.
You know what? I have to answer this because I'm a recruiter. People say don't give more than 10 years experience. What are my thoughts? 10 years, 10 to 15 is the sweet spot on a resume. However, if the experience is relevant to the position that you're actually applying for, you might want to add it. You're going to date yourself. Don't go back too far, because with technology, some of the skills you acquired 20 years ago might not be relevant now, but definitely go back 10. If it's relevant experience, you can kind of go back a little further. Listen, we did it today, Landy. We did it today. We gave them a lot of information. I want to thank you on behalf of Wanda Jackson, Dory Brown, the whole team at the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. You continue to show up and support us, and we really appreciate that. And also for our sponsor today, American Airlines. I just think it's been great to have you speaking about this topic. There's no one better at it. Landy Spearman, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to stay connected to Landy, please, you see the QR code here, visit the website. Trust me, she's really responsive because I bother her all the time on LinkedIn. So with that being said, I want to thank you, Landy. Any last words?
It's time for a shift.
It's time for a shift.
It's time for a shift. So you're in the right place at the right time. What do they say? Nothing to it but to do it. It's time for a shift. And I'm here to help.
I love it. You can connect with me as usual on LinkedIn, or visit the website, eastcoastexecutives.com. All right. You might as well register today, because October 4th is Work Like an Entrepreneur with Sandra Garcia, founder of Encounter Your Potential, future TEDx Harlem speaker. Come on, Sandra. We're going to do this in a couple of weeks. Build strategies to successfully leave your 9-to-5 behind. Isn't it time for a change? We're supporting your careers here at the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, and we'd like to thank you for supporting us. All right, that's it. Landy Spearman.
Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, National Urban League. Thank you, American Airlines.
Thank you. We appreciate you.